Hi, I'm Bill Simmons, Artistic Director of the Phoenix Theatre. I would like to welcome you to the conversation I'm about to have with this brilliant young director named Mikael Burke. Michael worked with us recently on Matt Smart's The Agitators. He directed brilliantly this two-hander play about the 45-year friendship between Frederick Douglass and Susan B. Anthony. It featured a wonderful actor named Jerome Beck from Chicago, as well as Lauren Brigham, who founded Summit Performance Indianapolis, the women-focused theater company here in Indianapolis. I can't tell you how delighted I am that Michael worked with us this spring. I first knew about him when he was a student at Butler University doing his undergraduate about a decade or so ago. He worked with No Exit and some other smaller performing arts groups here in Indianapolis before heading off to Chicago to get his master's degree in directing at DePaul University. I went to see a production of his that he directed about a year and a half ago at the Den Theater in Chicago, which was wonderful. It was an exquisite production, and I knew he was the director for Matt Smart's The Agitators. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Mikael Burke.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, Michael. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. You know, this is our first week of online teaching, so it's just for the summer program at DePaul. So it's been a really good week. Definitely learning what's working well and what we thought would work well that is working fine, but could be better. But we're living the dream. Yeah.
So what are you teaching for DePaul?
But this summer, because it's all virtual, all of that usual like class stuff went out the window, and we're kind of just taking students through, these are all of the things that you have to know as a director. We broke it down into like 7 like large themes, and we're, it's a good time, but it's been a wild ride because it's certainly different than how, it's just different than the like, you take your script analysis class, you take your acting class. So we're figuring stuff out. It's fun.
How many students are you teaching?
We have 13 directors, which is a lot. And there's 3 of us, 3 directing teachers, myself and 2 former grad school colleagues of mine, April Cleveland and Aaron Kraft. We divide and conquer. But yeah, 13 young budding directors.
I want to talk a little bit about, I don't know how many people know that you did your undergraduate at Butler University. I'm curious as to like what Butler gave you. I know you then began working with No Exit here in Indianapolis, and then at some point you decided you wanted to get an MFA in directing. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about what you got from Butler and your work with No Exit, and then what that led you to find in an MFA program in directing.
I was in Butler Theater in the last years of John Green's tenure.
Yes.
And
John Green, the director, not John Green, the novelist.
Yes, John Green, the John Chauncey Green, the British director who used to run our little Butler Theater program. And he brought a very unique aesthetic and sort of perspective to the program. It was super international focused, super physical devised focused, a lot of site specific work. My entire understanding of what theater is, what theater can be, for the first few years of my like understanding that this was even something I could do, came out of that program. And I'm really grateful that program was so interested in challenging tradition and challenging the norms of the practice and the aesthetics of the practice and the form of the practice, because the chief thing I feel like I learned in that program that I left with was that the only limit to what I can do as a director is my imagination. Butler was a really, really solid education. Early 20, 22-year-olds that are graduating from their other undergraduate programs and about to launch into the world. I knew at that point in my life that I knew everything. Like I had nothing else to learn at 22.
Sure.
But ultimately, I graduated and was like, well, I'm gonna make what I can make. And I lucked into, and I mean lucked. I feel like so much of everything is just luck. And I know there are other things and whatever, but
Yeah.
but so my senior project at Butler was this production of Euripides' Medea, minimal set. Everything was all white. Everything was all feathers, and I made this like dress that was covered in feathers, and it was a lovely little play. The person who I'd cast in the lead role at Butler her name's Catherine Van Wyck. She was an alum of Broad Ripple High School. Her former theater teacher at Broad Ripple came to see Medea at Butler and said, "Oh my gosh, can you bring this to our students at Broad Ripple?" Miraculously, someone was there at Broad Ripple that day and saw the show that knew this man named Dale Harkins, who is the current owner and operator of the Irving in Irvington.
Oh yeah.
And so this dude that I met at Broad Ripple hooked me up with Dale, and Dale was like, "Yeah, come on, come play." And so I did 3 plays in this space in Irvington my first year out of school, because I just lucked into space. Luck. And I know there are other things and whatever, but that same production of Medea, we did it at Indy Fringe that summer after I had graduated. It was a big hit there. We had a great time. And someone was like, "You should take this to other Fringe festivals." And so in 2010, me and 7 very close friends of mine threw ourselves into a Ford Focus and a Toyota Corolla and drove around the country for 2 months with a bunch of luggage like ratchet strapped through the windows of the car, because they don't have racks because they're tiny box cars. And we lived that way for 2 months. They took that show on the road, which was a really great time. But in order to do that, we had to start a company, right? And so that became what was then known as Paper Strangers Performance Group. And we operated, Tommy Louie and I did Paper Strangers, and we did that for about a year. And in 2011, I think I graduated in 2009, so it was 2 years. In 2011, we did the same thing with Paper Strangers. We dissolved our company and folded into No Exit in 2011. And that began my, I was with No Exit for almost 5 years before coming to Chicago. And those are some of the best, like, just memories I have of creative space, and like the power of, like, you know, that having that like family of creatives, the people that you've worked with so often and so many times. You just have to give each other a look, and you know exactly what you're saying, you know exactly why you're saying it, and you know exactly all 5 things you're about to do about it to fix whatever's going on. You know, and so that was a really great time. And I think Butler taught me how to play. Starting on my own taught me how to be scrappy. And No Exit really taught me how to put those 2 things together into a form that would inspire someone to want to come and play with me. Yeah,
what was your favorite projects?
Oh, so many. I mean, I think Georgiana's Antigone on the grounds of Newfields. We took over the gardens all around the Lily House. It's just always and forever going to be a top favorite experience of mine. The first time we did it, I was one of the brothers, the Atiklis, that got to fight in the fountain, which was just really cool. And then when we remounted it in 2012, I directed Oedipus, because we did the whole cycle. And just like that was just such a cool experience of like activating space, but also like the story was just so good. It was just a really lovely piece. I think another one of my personal favorites was we did Will Eno's Middletown.
Oh gosh, yes. With Matthew Rowland, was that the
with Matt Rowland, who was exquisite in that role. But that play was really beautiful and just a great sort of collaboration, you know. And then after 5 years with a small company where you're not getting paid a lot of money, and that is when grad school started to sort of make sense to me. I wanted to go back and figure out if I could address that note. And so I started applying, and grad school takes a couple of rounds of applications. But the reason that I ended up coming to DePaul here in Chicago is because when I came in for my interview, the thing that it was communicated to me that DePaul is a conservatory, and it was made very clear to me that if I came to DePaul, the thing I would learn is how to tell a clear story. And other places that I interviewed and where I was a finalist or got in were like, we want you to come and be an artist, and we're going to help you be, whatever artist you want to be. And at that point in my life, I'm like, but I'm doing that. I don't need to pay you $500,000 to teach me how to be an artist. But these people, they're selling something that I am, that I feel is a muscle that I want to that I want to work. And so that was my, that was my impulse to come to DePaul. And boy, oh boy, am I glad I did. Just so many things I didn't even know were things I could learn about directing. And it just exploded my understanding of the thing that we do.
So we were fortunate to have you do the Agitators, Matt Smart's play, right before the world shut down for COVID-19. Can you talk a little bit about, right before you directed the Agitators for us, you directed the Watsons Go to Birmingham 1963 for Janet Allen at the IRT. Differences, similarities between those projects, how you attacked?
Yeah, I think, is the beginning of the processes were actually pretty similar. It's just me reading and reading and reading, and then trying to parse out what my thoughts are. This is a play about what kind of play is this? What's the story that I'm watching? What's the spine that holds the play together, that holds the people in the play together? How does it want to affect the audience? How do I want to affect the audience? And what do I think the play is screaming at us? Are sort of what those questions are. And I find that once I do that work, I can be much more conversant about what the play is and how it might work. And then I think the biggest difference between the two processes was that Watson's, we had the great pleasure of casting actual young people in the roles of the children in the Watson family. And so, I had 3 actors, 2 13-year-olds and a 9 and an 8-year-old. I think she had just turned 8. And the bulk of the play was on the shoulders of these 2 13-year-olds who are, they're 13.
They're 13.
And as you know, there can be a wide range of 13, and so that was a really fun process. But it was certainly different because, there are certain ways that I might approach scene work with actors who have a process versus working with children who are very much still figuring out even what acting is.
Yeah, and the idea of 8 shows a week, or at the IRT, there's 10, 12, 13 shows a week.
Absolutely. And they added shows because we had the great fortune of it selling out like crazy hotcakes, and
it was the buzz prior to the Agitators, which was then the buzz in the city.
Yeah. you know, and I think Agitators was a great time because you know, it's two actors. So
Mm-hmm.
it's just, you know, there's a really small room. So we got to spend a lot of time together, really sort of mining this play for, you know, to find all of its nooks and crannies and all of the things that makes it tick and groan. And we just had a blast doing it. You know, had the great fortune of working with Lauren Brigham and Jerome Beck, a friend of mine from here in Chicago. And the two of them were so game to play, because that is, you know, that play is, it's wordy, it's texty, it's a lot of, you know, language in that play. And I
It's very
thought, yeah, and I thought they both did a really good job. That play was really fun because it was an actor's play, period. That play was all about those two people.
I thought you did a lovely job with the Agitators, getting those two actors to really get under it. And I saw it in final dress rehearsals, and then I saw it in that closing Sunday matinee. And in the hands of good actors and a good director, shows always grow. The ones that are, you know, not, maybe the scripts isn't so good, the direction hasn't been so good, the actors really aren't embracing it. It kind of limps right into the finish. But this play was clearly growing by leaps and bounds on that closing Sunday matinee. Ironically enough, the Ides of March. But it really was. It was two humans, both the actors and the characters, wanting to be in each other's presence and learning and absorbing and fighting and loving and caring. And I just thought it was really lovely work.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. Well,
It was, and that, I'm glad to hear you say that, because that was really a huge thing for me entering into that process. Was I wanted to make sure, for me, like, success in that play was their relationship. There's no way we would hear any of their politics if we didn't see their relationship. And we just stoked that fire as much as we could. And yeah, I think they did really lovely work. It's a beautiful play. And they brought it.
they brought it.
Yeah.
I thought you did a lovely job of harnessing the designer's work in that show. It all felt very uniform and of a whole. You know, there was nothing about it that felt disjointed, or, you know, that was too much, or this wasn't handled deftly enough. It was really quite lovely. So I do want to talk to you a little bit about James Still's play New World. I know that we had planned to have it scheduled for next season. We are not going to be tackling it next season, but I have not yet given up the fact that we might be able to do it in 21-22. But speak a little bit about what that play is about, what it appealed to you when I sent it to you to read, and how you might envision that show living on the stage if we're able to produce it.
For sure. Yeah, so a New World is, at its most basic, simple level, is a play about, like, the Plymouth colony. Essentially, it is the first appearance of a gay relationship in Plymouth, and it is the journey of these two men who are in love with one another, but don't have the words for that. And it is also the journey of the officials of Plymouth, of this village, trying to figure out the legality or illegality or the blasphemousness of what these two men are doing. And I just, you know, and I think it's like about the transcendence of love, and especially in this moment that we're in right now, in this administration that is so interested in, you know, in using law to write people out of existence. I think that this play is so pertinent to our moment, because that's what they're, you know, that's the struggle that they're going through, is how can we write these people out of existence if we don't have the language to describe what they are.
I mean, I was particularly drawn to the play, both because I thought I love flawed characters struggling against those things, and not villains. I firmly believe that plays about villains are just so not satisfying, but flawed humans struggling to overcome those things, to me are very compelling. And then I'm also a history buff, and when I was in college, one of the things I like to do is poli-sci, and I was a journalism poli-sci double major, but I loved history. And the fact that James wrote this play because he found documents while he was researching another play that was like, wait, what is this? And as you just described it, it's like these people in the Plymouth colony, I think William Bradford's one of the characters, the governor, like, what do you mean two men together? Like, what are you talking about? Like, just that whole idea. And then the idea that you need to like codify that. Like, oh, that's what that means. Oh, no, we can't do that.
And the play is so gracious about its treatment of everyone, whether they are, the people that we love or the people that we really don't love in this play, but everyone has this really great fallibility about them.
That's very interesting. You really should write the pitch back for when we're all back, the pianist back to
Happy
like,
to.
hey, we're
Happy
together on Rolling World premieres. Clearly know what you're doing, and so I suspect you're gonna have a beautiful career yet ahead of you, and we'll have you back as much as we possibly can. And I have this fear that eventually your talents are going to price us out of your market, but I hope that's not for a while yet.
Oh, we'll see. I don't know.
Well, Michael, be well, and we will be in touch again very soon.
For sure. Sounds good. Great to talk to you. We'll
Good to you. Yeah.
Okay.
See you, my friend.
Have a good night.
Yeah. Good night.